Won't let elementary school students leave because you don't trust them? This happened when I was in elementary school. My school was very strict about bathroom and water breaks and didn't trust us not to wander the halls. I wasn't the smartest child, but I was perfectly behaved. I never asked to leave unless I needed to actually do something, never used the nurse to get out of class, especially since it was my mom, and always listened to the teacher. One day in art I was feeling nauseous. I didn't verbalize this because I thought I could deal with it myself. I didn't want all the extra attention. In my head I thought, sometimes I feel better after drinking some water. So in the middle of working on my art project, I walk up to my teacher and ask, "Can I go get some water at the water fountain?" "No," she replied. I sulked back to my desk and kept working on my project. It started getting worse and worse, so I walked up to my teacher again and asked in the best kiss-ass tone I could muster, "Can I go to the water fountain, please?" She responded, "No, go back to your seat, don't ask again." Then, I got the feeling in my stomach, the one where you know it's too late. I puked all over her shoes and outfit, and then I was sent to go talk to my mom about how I puked all over my teacher and wanted to go home. Coworker won't respect a student's new name, so I won't respect hers. About 3 years ago, a student and her parents came into school just before the beginning of the year. This student had attended in our district since kindergarten as Jacob. Now, at 15, she had come out as trans and wanted to be known as Janet. She had the full support of her family and, together with them by her side, sat down with the administration before the year began to help figure out how to handle the transition at school. Overall, it was pretty easy. Janet did not have a PE class and was not an athlete, so locker rooms weren't an issue. She was, obviously, not comfortable using the boys' restroom and knew a lot of girls would be uncomfortable with her using the girls' restroom. An agreement was set up, with Janet's full participation and acceptance, that she could use the single-person restrooms in the clinic or main office. The only issue was her name in our grade management system. The way the law worked in our state, students' educational records, which our grade management system was considered a part of, had to be in the student's legal name. We could not change Jacob to Janet without a new birth certificate or legal name change document. Since Janet was not legally transitioning yet, a workaround was found. In the grade management system, there is a place we can put notes about students. Usually, they are reserved for things like, "Please contact mom on her work number during the day," or "Dad may not pick student up without mom's permission." They weren't official records and were just used to keep teachers, administrators, and staff aware of important issues regarding that student. So, to help Janet, a note was placed that read, "Jacob wishes to be known as Janet. Please refer to her as such in all communication and interaction." Then, school started. Most of the kids had no issues switching from Jacob to Janet, or respecting her new identity as a girl. Gen Z is great that way. The teachers all made the switch with only minor hiccups. A few of the older teachers misnamed her or misgendered her out of pure habit of having known her for years. But a sincere apology and quick correction kept things running smoothly. Janet was happy. Her parents were happy. Everything was good. Until second semester. At the end of fall semester, Janet finished a one-semester elective class with one teacher and was switching to a one-semester elective class with Old Bitch, a notoriously difficult woman to have to share oxygen with. Old Bitch was about 5 minutes from retirement and 10 minutes from the grave, based on her constant complaints of health issues. She was also stuck in her ways and refused to change her routines, opinions, or habits. Old Bitch was also widowed and had recently begun seeing a widower who worked on our maintenance staff. This is important. Right before Christmas, in the end of fall semester, Old Bitch and the widower maintenance man got married. As with many newly married people in the world, she went about getting her name changed throughout the school, payroll, computer systems, door nameplate, etc. She was no longer Old Bitch Jones. Now, she was Old Bitch Smith. One day, shortly after second semester started, Janet came to my class, which she had right after she was with the newly renamed Old Bitch Smith, looking as though she had been crying. I got the class started on an assignment and pulled Janet into the hallway to talk. There, she confided that Mrs. Smith kept calling her Jacob, despite half the class correcting her and standing up for her. Mrs. Smith, apparently, hand-waved away the mistake by saying that she just forgot and would try to remember next time. This went on for weeks. Every time Janet was in Mrs. Smith's class, she'd refer to the student by her former name. Every time she did, the students would correct her and remind her that the student's name was Janet, not Jacob. Every time she was corrected, she'd just say, "I forgot. I'll try to remember next time." Students, including Janet, went to the administration to voice complaints. Admin talked to old bitch and reminded her of Janet's transition and new name. Time and time again, she was asked to please be respectful and refer to Janet appropriately. Every time, old bitch hid behind her age and habit, saying, "I'm trying, but I'm an old lady who can't change habits easily. I'll try, but it's just an honest mistake." I may have been willing to buy this excuse if it weren't for the fact that another teacher, who I am close with, told me that old bitch was getting on her high horse in the teacher's lounge one day and confessed that she had no intentions of gendering Janet appropriately or using her new name. He was Jacob for years, and the system says he's Jacob, so that's what I'm going to call him. So, it's time for my revenge. You don't get to disrespect students and get away with it. As a gay man, it's especially personal to me when LGBT students get disrespected. But, since old bitch wants to play, I'll play. From that day on, I only referred to her as Mrs. Jones, instead of her newly married name of Smith. I made sure to do it loudly and in front of students, too. When she'd correct me, I'd just say, "I'm sorry, it's just habit. I'll try to remember next time." It infuriated her, but there wasn't much she could do. The added bonus was Gen Z's inherent love of fuck around and find out. Without me involving a single student, pretty soon about half the student body forgot that old bitch had gotten married. Of course, they all promised to try to remember next time. It was glorious. Every time someone called her by her former name, old bitch would get pissed and rant about people disrespecting her. She tried to get admin on her side, but the nice, if a bit spineless, principal just said, "Well, I'm sure it's just a mistake." No one would intentionally call someone by the wrong name. For the rest of the year, she fought a losing battle about respecting her new name. I left that school, for other reasons, over that next summer, but from what I was told, she fought that battle until she retired this past May, coincidentally, the same year Janet graduated. Guy potentially ruined his life for telling me to kill myself. I'm not entirely sure how correct this story is for this subreddit, but it might fit. I work for an IT company that does tech support. We receive calls for help. We try to help. This guy called up asking for help to remove a piece of software that required administrator rights. Pretty standard. Nothing special. However, the computer he was requesting help with was his own personal computer. Obviously, we don't have any access or control over random people's computers. I have zero way I can help him without the admin account, and he said he doesn't know the account. The software was some kind of parental management software that restricts him from doing things. This guy is in his early 20s. I know this because we can see the details of the people that call us on our system. So, kind of hilarious, he has this software installed. Anyway, after I tell him that I cannot help him, he ends up telling me that I work for a trash company and that I should kill myself. I don't even respond, and he hangs up the phone. Now, obviously the calls are recorded, and I'm not going to just ignore what just happened. I tell my manager the story. He listens to the phone call. My manager then calls the liaison for the company he called from. They find out that this guy is an intern at the company. He now no longer works for the company. During the call, they decide to get the CEO on the phone and tell him what happened. Shortly after that call, the CEO lets us know that he called the university that the guy is currently going to. The university has now dropped him from all his classes. This guy has now lost his intern job and lost his placement in university, all because he told me to kill myself on the phone. Pregnant coworker gets her just desserts. So I worked in this small, family-owned office that runs 24/7. There's about 25 employees total, but in the office there's only like 12 of us. The rest work off-site. There's a woman who works here. We'll call her Jill. Jill is almost 40 and has been here about 10 years. For reference, I have been here just over 4 years. Since I've been hired, and from what I hear, for her entire employment, she has never agreed to switch shifts with anyone. Not once. Not a single time has she ever done anyone a favor, no matter what. Yet she has no issue constantly asking other people to switch shifts with her. A year into my employment, my brother needed emergency surgery, and I begged her to cover my shift the next day, and all she said was, "Sunday's my only day to sleep in."
Sorry.
I never forgot that. Whatever, she's not obligated to switch shifts. It's her prerogative if she wants to be universally disliked by our entire office. Anyway, Jill got pregnant about 7 months ago, completely accidentally, and was actually quite freaked out about it for a while. She's pretty much been nauseous her entire pregnancy, and even keeps a trash can next to her desk just in case she can't make it to the bathroom. Yesterday, she was feeling really sick, and around 12:30 p.m., she asked our boss if she could leave early. He told her she could only leave if she could get someone to agree to finish her shift. Our shifts are mainly 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 to 11 p.m., and 11 to 7 a.m., with periodic split shifts thrown in as needed. I was working morning yesterday, scheduled to leave at 3 p.m., and she was scheduled until 7 p.m. The only other person who could have stayed for her had plans right after his shift, so I was her only option. She waited until 2:45 p.m. and then sauntered up to my desk, puppy dog eyes fully engaged, and asked me to stay for the rest of her shift because she was really feeling ill. Now I'm on Reddit a lot, and I never forgot that post about the bitchy manager refusing to allow her employee to be at her dying son's bedside. There's a line in that text exchange that I loved and have been waiting for the perfect moment to use, and this was it. I swivel to face her, look her right in her eyes, trail my eyes down to her bulging, unplanned, pregnant stomach and pointedly say, "A lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part," and just swivel right back and continue working without another word. It was glorious. Her face instantly dropped. It looked like someone farted into her mouth the way it twisted. She didn't say a thing and just waddled away back to her desk, absolutely furious. 15 minutes later, I stand up and loudly announce my departure and that if anyone needs me, I'll be at home taking a nap. Be a condescending, dickish vegan trying to order carry-out? Enjoy a decidedly non-vegan meal when you get home. I never really believed in the stereotype of the condescending, holier-than-thou vegan. I figured it was an invention of omnivores that like to make fun of vegans and project some kind of judgmental attitude on them. And then I met her. She came into this really solid Asian fusion restaurant that does carry out. She was talking to her friend, and the gist of the conversation was that she was appalled that she was even in this restaurant. The food didn't even count as vegan, since they also served meat. In fact, for the 10 minutes that I knew her, she basically had nothing nice to say about anyone or anything. It was pretty spectacular, listening to one person manage to say nothing nice for 10 minutes. She could win gold in the Ash Olympics. I'd been standing in line, patiently waiting to place an order, with one person in front of me. As she walked in, that person finished ordering, at which point she breezed by me like I didn't even exist.
Idyllica tofu lumain.
The woman behind the counter looked at me, and I coughed politely. "I'm sorry, I was here first." This elicited the biggest, most, "how dare you waste my time" eye roll I've ever seen, and she wordlessly stepped back. I ordered a chicken fried rice. Then she ordered her tofu lo mein, and we stepped back to wait for our food. 10 minutes later, the first order popped up, at which point this woman, mindlessly chatting with her friend about how much someone they both knew is a total bitch, swiped the order without thinking and without a thank you, and stormed for the door, in a desperate hurry to ruin other people's evenings somewhere. My first thought was, isn't it likely that my order finished before yours? And I almost said it. And then I realized she was storming out with a meal she really didn't want. The next meal popped up about 2 minutes later. I grabbed it knowing there was a solid chance it was tofu, thanked the very nice woman behind the counter, and left without stopping to open it, afraid that if I wasted a second's time that angry shrew might have stormed back in and corrected her oversight. I triumphantly ate a tofu lo mein back at home that night. Well, I ate the lo mein and picked around the tofu. I don't know if that harpy returned demanding her correct meal or if she just got home, realized it was chicken fried rice, and threw it away dejectedly. I just hope she felt some level of the misery she seemed to enjoy forcing on everyone around her. I forced my bad neighbors into an unwanted move. I got my very first apartment at the ripe age of 26. I was fortunate enough to be able to afford one without roommates. I was a model tenant, paid my rent on time every month, polite to the office workers, never caused trouble. I lived on the top floor of a 3-story building. Well, 2 years after I moved in, I had new neighbors move into the apartment below me. I was working a swing shift, so my hours were 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., and I often stayed up late to 3 a.m. to do minor chores, dishes, cooking, cleaning, but not vacuuming. I also had 2 cats at the time. My new neighbors immediately went on the warpath against me. I could not make any noise without them banging on my floor. I unloaded my dishwasher at 11 a.m. on a Sunday, and they flipped out. They complained to the office about my herd of animals. They sent police to my door at 9 p.m. because I was watching TV at a reasonable volume with the subtitles on. I literally could not make any sound without them complaining. It culminated in one of them pounding on my door for 10 minutes after I dared call the office to express my frustration. So I called the office back, told them that I did not feel safe in my apartment due to my neighbor's actions, legal grounds for me to break my lease. But then I dropped my bombshell. My neighbors had 4 people in a 1-bedroom apartment that had a 2-person max capacity. Apartment management told my neighbors they had to move into a more expensive 2-bedroom apartment, or their lease would be terminated. They moved to the larger apartment on the other side of the complex. My new neighbors were great. 2 adult men who smoked weed on the balcony. Never even spoke to them. Law vidying. Man refuses to let me enter the elevator. Ends up spending more time than necessary in the elevator. This happened a few months back in my previous apartment. So, I'm a black man living in Eastern Europe. One fateful afternoon when I wanted to go down and collect something from a friend who was passing by. I press the elevator and wait for it to arrive. Elevator door opens and there's a couple inside, but as I try to enter, the man blocks the passage, telling me to wait for the elevator to return. Mind you, I'm on the 7th floor, and my friend was already waiting for me to come down. Also, the elevator has a fixed time before its doors close, about 20 seconds. So you'll have to wait for the doors to close after you enter. Back to my story. I tell this man and his wife that I'm actually in a hurry and had to go down now, and he literally stands in front of the elevator entrance, shouting no. His wife tells him to let me in since there was still space, but he refused. I said all right and decided to use the stairs. Cue my petty revenge. I ran down the stairs, didn't mind the cardio really, and pressed all the elevator buttons on all the lower floors. Got to my friend and collected my package, then ran back upstairs. On my way back up, I could hear the man cussing out inside the elevator and his wife's laughter. They hadn't even reached the ground floor yet. I felt so proud of myself. Haha. TLDR. Man refuses to let me enter the elevator when I was in a hurry, and I ran down and pressed all the elevator buttons. Edit. This definitely blew up. I love the elevator puns, guys. Keep 'em coming. LOL, some of y'all are much more evil than I am. Someone said I should have gone down to the next floor and keep on pressing the elevator button until he lets me in. One even said I should have gone to turn off the elevator. I don't actually know how to do that, and I don't think I would have if I knew where the switch was. Also, it would have been much more satisfying if the elevator stopped working on its own accord. COVID or racism? I don't know, and I actually don't care. I was wearing a mask, but he wasn't. Hold up the elevator on each floor? Enjoy stopping unnecessarily on a bunch of floors on your way down. So yesterday, I was returning home with a heavy bag of groceries. As I approached my apartment building, I saw a delivery man with parcel trolley waiting at the door. I decided to open it for him, so he could get in while I checked my mailbox. As I entered the building, I heard him get on the elevator. He must have heard me enter the building as well, but he didn't bother to hold the lift for me. No big deal. I'll just wait for it to come back down. The elevator stopped on the 4th floor, and I noticed it stayed at the 4th floor for a lot longer than it normally should, almost like it was stuck. After a moment, it started moving, except instead of going down to me, it was going up, and stopped at the 5th floor. Again, it was stopping for an unusually long time. It was at this point I realized the courier must have been holding up the elevator doors with his trolley, so that they couldn't close, meaning the elevator won't move on. Annoyed because I have a heavy bag of shopping, I live on the 7th floor, and we only have one elevator. I was even more incensed when I saw the elevator carry on going further up and holding at other floors. At this point, I'd been waiting a good couple of minutes, so I decided to take the stairs to the 7th floor. However, I ran as fast as I could. Why? because the elevator was coming down from the 16th floor and on my way to the 7th floor. I pressed for the elevator on each floor I passed. If he enjoyed holding up the lift, he could spend extra time in them on the way down. I waited in the stairwell and listened to the elevator stop on my floor, doors open, doors close, stop on the 6th, and so on. When it hit the 5th, I could just about hear the courier say, "For fuck's sake," as he realized no one is getting on the elevator. I was out of breath and had a good sweat going on, but it was worth it in the name of pettiness.